guys, Eric and Roth here to talk about the Season 3 finale of Game of Thrones, Mhysa. I think at this point we all kind of know that Episode 9 of each season is the, oh my god, I can't believe what just happened one. Episode 10, a little quieter, but still pretty damn eventful as far as setting up the next season. And here we had a lot of characters sort of changing where they were going, brand new missions and journeys, and coming together, including Bran and Sam meeting for the first time.
Yeah, this is the one that sort of lets you catch your breath, and here we go, Bran and Sam meeting. That was a great moment. I think that one of the things that's so great about this episode is that it gave you a little bit of everybody. They try to do that right at the end, sending you into the next season.
Yeah.
And this sort of demonstrates magic. This is the cool thing about Game of Thrones. Yes, we have magic. Yes, that makes some things easier, but there is a cost. Mm-hmm. Nothing is really easy, and we see sort of more of the sacrifice that Bran has to make through the eyes of Sam telling him, hey man, don't do it.
Right.
Where are you going?
Yeah, and as much as we want the Starks to be reunited, as many of them are left at this point, we're not getting that, so at least seeing Sam and Bran briefly, they didn't even stick around together, meet is a nice moment of two of our good guys, few good guys coming together. Jon Snow, speaking of reunions, well, he had a sad splitting off from his girl there with a few arrows on the way, but he did get reunited with Sam. Sam was meeting up with everyone in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one way to break up, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? She could have taken him out if she really wanted to. She was just giving him a little,
oh,
hey,
absolutely, yeah.
There's 3 for breaking my heart.
Yeah, no,
you know?
she could have killed him, and the fact that she didn't, I think, says it all. So now he is there back with the Night's Watch. And we finally got identification in this episode of who that guy was torturing Theon. It was a little strange they even kept it a secret at all and danced around it.
Yeah, it was a little strange. And, you know, I think what they were trying to do was find a way to mirror what had been done in the book.
Yeah.
With, you know, he disappears, he comes back as this other character. You're not even really sure
Theon,
who it is.
yeah.
Theon comes back as this other character. You're not even really sure who it is at first. And then you find out sort of what happened to him. I think they were trying to maintain that little bit of air of mystery. But again, as we've been saying, if you just paid attention to who was sent to sort it out, you knew who it was.
Yeah, but he certainly proved again what a horrible, horrible person he is.
Horrible person.
He did a little Lonely Island homage there by sending a certain part of Theon's anatomy to Yara and Balin, who we hadn't seen the entire season, suddenly showed up in what was a brief sequence, but I thought a pretty cool sequence as far as Yara is concerned.
Absolutely, and this is one thing, again, that some people are taking umbrage with because it's a sort of deviation. Well, it's a deviation.
Yeah.
I love it, and I'll tell you why. I think one of the things that they try to do in the last episode is sort of pack in thematics as well. And one of them was about family, and sort of what family means, and what's in a name, and the power of a name. Those 3 things.
Right.
You know, the Lannisters have a name. What does that mean? It doesn't mean I love you, son, necessarily for Tywin.
No.
But it does mean I'm going to go get you if you're in trouble, because it makes me look weak if I don't. Yara, I think, is doing this a little bit of both. It's the Greyjoy name. He's a Greyjoy. We're going to take care of our own. But she also sort of displayed, for the first time in a long time, a bit of love for her brother.
Yeah, at least loyalty, at least, you know.
Loyalty, at least. And I actually love that change.
I thought that was really cool, too. I felt like I almost felt like they could have left him out of the finale, maybe saved him for next season, because he's got so little screen time, and he's gone through so much. I'm really invested in his character. He only was there a little bit, but Cersei got some great material, I thought.
Yeah, she absolutely did, and I will say this. I think that Jaime showed back up not for Jaime's arc, but for Cersei's arc. Because I think that what we saw this week was a lot of her vulnerability. She was sort of like laying truth bombs in that moment with Tyrion, and she said, look, I'd be dead without my kids, and nobody, not even Joffrey, can take away what he meant to me when he was a baby.
Right.
She knows he's a monster. There is only one person in the world that has ever truly loved Cersei, though, and that's Jaime.
Yeah.
And I think that what this episode was about was her abject loneliness, and again, that sort of sense of family and connection. And what does that mean? Now, we don't want it to mean what it means between these 2 siblings necessarily, but you sort of almost, and I know I'm going to get comments about this, but you almost understand it because she's so lonely.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of weight to them being reunited, even though it's also twisted and perverse, but it's fascinating. They chose to end this episode and the season with Dany. I felt it was a little, I don't want to say weak, but I don't know if I would have ended the episode like that, only because we've kind of felt notes like that before. We've seen her triumphant with her dragons. We've seen people reach out to her in adoration. So it kind of felt like a familiar note to end the season on.
You know, I actually felt it wasn't even familiar, as a little anticlimactic compared to the way that the last 2 seasons ended with Dany, which was with a punch.
Right.
You know, this one was with a sort sort of punch. It's interesting because to me, a lot of another theme in the episode sort of had to do with egalitarianism and the highborn versus the lowborn. We're just 1 million ways for you to get what you want, Gendry says.
Right.
I thought that was such a great line. With Dany, it's very interesting because she is sort of behaving in an egalitarian way in terms of liberating, and I can't give you your freedom. You've got it. Your freedom is yours, sort of. It's very democratic in a way. And yet, the response is to worship her almost in a godlike manner. I mean, this is like a very religious moment,
yes,
right?
Yes, it is.
And so I thought that kind of juxtaposition was interesting. Juxtaposition, whatever. I thought that was kind of interesting, but at the same time, a little less oomph than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, to just leave the season on, I agree. And Arya and the Hound, we've talked about before, is one of my favorite duos on this show. There's such an interesting dynamic there. So much tragedy this girl has gone through. And here we got to finally see her really get her first little taste of her own personal revenge.
Yeah, and this was, again, a little deviation, but I think it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that was the exact right murder. That was the right murder.
It was the right murder.
It was the right murder. I mean, that was the right moment for her to take that action.
Yeah.
And I think she had no other choice. I love the dynamic between her and the Hound. I think that what's happened over the last couple of seasons with Arya is that they pair her with people that she has complete enmity with, and yet they have a fascinating dynamic that happened with Tywin last season, and certainly with the Hound now. What I like is that he's almost become a little paternal, but only in the way that the Hound can.
Right.
Like, hey man, look, I'm not telling you not to kill people, but if you are, give me a heads up.
I did like that. He's like, yeah, clue me in. We could have planned a whole cool thing.
It's like, if you're going to be out late, it's fine, man, but just let me know. I thought that was kind of great. And you understood absolutely, look, this girl's life has sucked.
Yeah.
It's just straight up sucked. And after what she had to see, the brutality of what was happening.
They put a wolf on her brother's body. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's no real coming back from that for any normal human being. And she's just so badass.
Yeah, and you feel like the Hound might even see like something of a kindred spirit, because we know he comes from a cruel, harsh background.
Oh, yeah.
And so it is this interesting bonding happening between them.
Yeah, and then there's this whole highborn versus the lowborn. Well, I mean, my goodness, like, think of where she started and where she's come now. I mean, I think there's we're seeing sort of those cross trajectories, like some people that started very low and are rising or have risen, like Melisandre. Some people started very high and have gone to the sort of depths of society, like Arya has. And I think those are really interesting cross purposes.
Yeah. And then we'll end talking about what's going on with Stannis and that whole scenario this week. First, I want to say that in a show that has so much misery and pain and loss, it means a lot when you even get a scene like Davos and Gendry kind of bonding. Those little things actually resonate a lot, I feel, because we're like, oh, that's nice. They're having a nice connection there because something horrible is probably going to happen around the corner.
Yeah, and I think that their sort of dynamic encapsulates all of what I see as the themes. It's about where do you come from? He's Robert's bastard, so really he is of high blood, but he's had this low blood life. What is it? The many versus the few. There's that wonderful line. Is it? What is one bastard boy in the face of a whole kingdom? And he says everything.
Right.
And that's sort of your position. You either are on Melisandre's team, where she's like, millions of people are going to die if I don't do this. Nobody's black and white, good or bad, including her.
No.
Millions of people are going to die if we don't do this. So this boy's life isn't worth it. But Davos says, no, it is. Because ultimately, he has that code of ethics. I don't have an answer for that.
Right.
I really don't. Several different times we heard, is it 10,000 men versus a dozen? Which is more worth it in this episode?
Making very cold decisions all the way. But I feel like the end, I almost wish they'd ended the entire episode with Stannis' decision. I kind of understand why they didn't, because they probably felt like, from a character perspective, people know and love Dany more than Stannis, who only appears once in a while. But I do feel like Stannis, his decision to go to the Wall and to help the Night's Watch is a pretty huge turn for everything that's happening there.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think, it demonstrates how much Melisandre's holding the reins.
Yeah.
I mean, she's pretty much like, nope, that's what's important, screw the 5 kings, screw all of that, this is what's key. I think that was the other thing that we got sort of this episode, like, listen, even Sam said it, listen, like, we're sworn to protect men, all of the men, that's including her, because what we've got coming at us, this army of the undead, is far more important than any of this other BS.
Right.
And I think that that sort of his decision to go do that illustrated that everyone, or at least he, is now on board with that.
Yeah, Melisandre, it was interesting. I mean, she is a believer. Like you said, it's like most of the characters, there is exceptions like Ramsay and Joffrey, but most believe they're motivated by doing the right thing or what's in their best interest or the people they love's best interest. So the fact is that when she believes now, hey, you know what, this is important. She even says this is more important than the entire war going on for the kingdom. Yeah, so she's ready right then to change her entire plan.
Yeah, and the question is, how powerful is the magic? What can the magic overcome? And I mean, basically, is it going to be magic against magic at this point?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, because they do have their own Red Witch now to fight the undead. Plenty to think about here. We have another year until it's back, unfortunately, for Game of Thrones. But a lot happened this season, a lot happened in this finale. Let us know in the comments what you thought, and we will see you next year to talk about Game of Thrones. Thanks, guys.